our Report Designer 2025 series that we've been running. This is number 3, where we're looking at tables and variables, so starting to get more involved with the Report Designer today. Now, just before we get started with the webinar itself, just in case anyone is new, I'm sure most of you have attended a webinar before, but just in case, just let you know, microphones will be muted just as normal. That'll be done automatically. You can't unmute yourself. Any questions you have for us, pop them in the questions panel. We'll try our best to pick those up during the session, or maybe at the end, or if all else fails, we'll pick them up via email afterwards. We've got Abby and Laura on hand today to try and answer those questions, so do bear with us. It can be quite a busy session sometimes, even with lower numbers for Report Designer on the session. It can still be very busy on the questions front, but do keep those questions coming. We'll try our best to get as many answers to you as possible. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides, those are available during the session to download. There's the 2 versions during the session. Afterwards, you will receive the follow-up email, and there'll be the full colour version link for the handout if you do want them, if you forget to download it or you lose that download. That email will include a link to a recording of today's session, so if you need a little bit of a recap, then just watch out for that. It'll also include a link so that you can register for our upcoming webinars, and also so you can watch previous recordings as well. So if there's anything you have missed, just again, watch out for that one. These are the sessions that we're running as part of this Report Designer 2025 badge. So up to session 3, tables and variables used by Report Designer. We've got, again, going a bit more in depth into the Report Designer, introducing you to different areas. There's loads of extra detailed information available in our Help Centre about those areas if you do want to. We do get a few comments saying, oh, it's not as in depth as I thought it would be on the various sessions, but they are just introductory sessions, again, just to give you an idea of what's possible. And if you are wanting more information and to develop that knowledge further, then you can find that in our Help Centre. So all of those sessions coming up over the next, I think the next 2 weeks, we've got them booked in for. Now, to attain the badge, you'll need to attend 5 of the 7 topics, plus one of the quiz sessions. We run the quiz twice, as that's sort of a mandatory part of earning that badge. If you did attend some of the sessions last month, don't worry, they will be merged. So any 5 from this month or last month, plus one of the quiz sessions, will earn you that badge. That will be sent towards the end of October, once we've finished all of the sessions. Right, this is what we're going to be covering in today's session, though. So a brief introduction to tables and variables. We'll then run through a bit of a demonstration, so looking at editing a report, adding a variable, or what's often referred to as a data field. Got a hands-on task for you. So helping you to find the correct variable. How do you go about doing that? So there's certain, you're working in the software and you think, well, actually, I would like to include that information from, like, say, the customer record. I would like to include like an email address or something along those lines from the customer record on your report. How can you find out what table and variable you need to insert onto your report? So I'm going to show you that, and I've got, as I say, I've got that hands-on task available to get you using that online resource. We'll look at editing a layout, just to show you really it's pretty much the same as editing a report as far as tables and variables are concerned. And I want to touch on transaction variables as well. Loads of like queries surrounding that. Do I look at the header or the splits? So I'm going to try and clarify that a little bit. If you don't want to understand what I mean by headers and splits or grouped or individual item lines, then obviously, hopefully that will become clear when we get on to that point. Just at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support, and of course, if there are outstanding questions, which I would probably fully expect it to be, because there can be some can be quite complex, these queries that you might have, then I will try and chip in with some of those as well at the end. But don't worry if you don't get an answer, we'll try and get back to you once we get round to that. Right, so let's start with a little bit of an introduction to tables and variables. So always tend to start with just telling you a little bit about the Report Designer first of all. If you've not really used it yet, or maybe this is the first time round that you're attending these sessions, maybe you've never edited your invoice layout before. The Report Designer, it's almost like a separate part of the software. But it is a very powerful tool. It enables you to create and also amend reports and layouts. Now, I use the term to create reports and layouts there. You would use that quite loosely because I would never really encourage you to create one yourself from scratch. It can be quite complex. You can if you want, but it can be quite complex. We always normally recommend find the one that's close to what you want and then amend it. Normally a lot simpler and a lot quicker as well. But you do have that option available if you develop your knowledge enough to go down that route. Now, variables, basically they're used to get information from your data. So like all your, maybe your company information, your customers, your suppliers, so dates, transaction numbers, values, that type of thing. So using those to get information from your data into your reports and your layouts. Now, they're all also known as data fields. Now, I'll probably, if you've used Sage for a while, I'll probably refer to them as variables, but these days, I suppose the modern name is data fields. You probably chop and change between them as we go throughout this session, but they're one and the same thing. So each variable or data field contains one piece of information. If anyone's used like mail merge in the past, you can think that long back where you were creating a Word document and popping in little fields to then pull information from like an Access database or an Excel spreadsheet. It's essentially what that is. It's a data field that pulls information into a set position. So each one of those variables contains one bit of information. Now, the variables or the data fields are grouped into what you would term named tables. And each table basically contains related information of a particular type. For example, there's a company table. So that company table contains loads of variables relating to the information that's held within your company preferences. There's a sales ledger table. So a sales ledger, it contains loads of variables relating to the information that's stored within a customer record. Similarly, you have a purchase ledger relating to your supplier records. And there's loads of these tables containing loads of different variables. Now, you might also find when you're working with tables and variables that some variables actually have the same name. It's just they're in different tables. But it doesn't mean that they are the same thing. So each table will actually store information about a different thing. So the name variable, which we'll have a look at in a few minutes. So the name variable in the customer table would contain different information to the name variable from the supplier table. So obviously they pull names through, but they're contained in different tables. So a lot of them will almost like mirror each other, but they are contained in different tables, therefore indicating where they pull that information from. So what we're going to do, we're going to get stuck in with some demonstrations just to give you an idea of how it works and how you can use them in the software and help you to understand maybe the design of your reports and your layouts just that little bit better. So I'll quickly share my screen. Now I'm in version 32 of Sage 50 accounts today. For what we're going to cover today, it's going to be pretty much the same. So we're going to start with, again, basics, and you'll find we do this when we're working with Report Designer, when we're sort of looking at sort of introducing different elements. We'll try to stick with basic reports so as to not confuse anyone. So if we pop into customers, and then I'm going to go into reports. So reports at the top, and then we have that list of folders. So we're going to choose the customer details. We're going to use the customer list report. So this one, it's fourth down on my list there. So we'll highlight that. And I'm going to click edit at the top. And when we do that, it takes up or opens the design of that specific report within the report designer. So this is what the design of a report might look like. Some of them will look a lot more complex than this. If you look at the likes of your invoice layout, for instance, it will have loads and loads of different sections in the middle part of what would be the main body of your invoice. So it can be quite complex. Now, if we just hover over name at the top here, so you see it says name, but if we just hover over the top, you'll see we get that little box appear. Unfortunately, I can't make that appear any bigger, that little box that appears, so hopefully you can see it. So again, if I just hover over it, it comes up with that little box, and it says variable, and it says company.name. Now, the syntax or the format for a variable when it appears on a report or layout is basically the table name followed by the variable name. So in this case, the table name is company. We've then got that full stop. And then the variable is just called name. So we've got the table and the variable. Now, if I just preview the report for a moment, so click the little preview option at the bottom and accept the default criteria values. And you'll see that in that position at the top here, it's pulled through basically my company name. So the company name for this set of data, which is just called Sage Demos-V32. So it's pulling that through from, in this case, the company preferences area. Now, in addition to we'll just go back there to the design view. So in addition to let's get rid of the warnings at the bottom as well, and we'll zoom in a little bit so you can hopefully see them a little bit clearer again. So in addition to those tables that contain your data, there are also two tables that contain variables relating to the report itself. So there's what we term the report table. So if I just hover over date at the top, you'll see that one says variable report.date. So report being the table, date being the variable. And there's other ones at the top here. So it's got report.time, got the page number, and then we've got the name of the report itself. We've also got what we term the criteria table on this design as well. So in this sort of criteria section. So this relates to the criteria values that we specified or have the opportunity to specify when you run the report. So in this case, if we just hover over, you can see this one is picking up criteria, and then it's saying dot customer ref from, and then the one below customer ref to. So it's picking up from the criteria table, and the variable is the bit after the full stop. So in this case, customer ref to. Right, now if we still while we're in design view, if we go to the sort of the main body as well. So you can see we've got some sort of column headings. So this is text. We can tell it's text just by hovering over it. When we hover over it, nothing much happens other than you might be able to make that out. We get like a yellowy box around what we're hovering over. So it indicates to me that it's basically text. So we don't get that floating box pop up. Whereas if it's a variable, so I just hover over this one, we get the box pop up. This is variable sales ledger dot account ref. So sales ledger being the table, account ref being the variable. So we think about the customer record. So where you've got the addresses, credit limits, contact details. How many variables do you think there would be? So if you want to have a guess, so if you think about an address box, there's what, 5 lines in address, so they would each have a different variable. So all those different bits of information that you can potentially pull through from a customer record, how many different sort of variables would you would you have a guess at what there actually was? If you want to put a guess in the questions panel, so do you think it's 50, 100, more? Whatever you think, have a guess. How many do you think there would be on the actual sales ledger table itself? So the type of information that I can pull through from the customer record. I'm not talking about transactions, I'm just talking about sort of top level information, so account reference, the name on the account, the contact. How many different variables do you think there are? Diana, you're straight in there, 150. Simon, 250. Tracy, you're 40. Annette, 25. Rachel, 120. I've got a massive variation there. Now, there might only be a handful that you ever use, but if you think about a customer record, if you start counting the boxes that are available on the various tabs, there's loads. There's about, when I checked, there's about 173. If anyone wants to check otherwise, you're more than welcome to do that. It will vary depending on the variant that you're on. When I talk about the variant, I'm on about the different level of Sage 50 accounts, so whether you're on Essentials, Standard, or Professional. Obviously, if you're on Professional, you'll have a few more options available to you compared to the likes of Essentials. So there's loads in there. So sometimes the difficulty is trying to find the right one. So what's it called and which table is it in? So for instance, a good example, probably things like email addresses. Older versions, you would only have 3 email address fields in your software on the tables, or sorry, on the sales ledger table. Whereas these days, you've now got up to 6 email addresses. So there's a variable for each one of those. Similar for the analysis fields or the custom fields, as we call them. So again, used to be 3, there are now 6. Again, it can vary depending on the version of the software that you're using. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you very quickly how we can add a variable. So let's say on this report, just as an example, and yes, there are other reports that contain the information I'm going to show you, but just to give you an idea of how you go about adding information onto a report, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the customer's credit limit. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the email address from this report to begin with. So I'm just going to highlight it first of all, click on email. I'll press delete on the keyboard. I'll do the same with the heading, get rid of, just to make a little bit of space. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add the credit limit from the sales ledger table. So we want to pull that information through onto this report from the customer's record. Now, there's a number of ways that you can do that for adding data fields or variables onto your report. The first one is just on your toolbar at the top here. So this is the toolbar basic, this one. So all we do is we find the option add data field. So we just give it a click, and then we move the mouse to approximately where we want to insert that data field. And when we click, we'll get this data field window appear. So this is where it lists all of the groups, all those tables. So we can see we've got one called audit header, audit splits. There's the company one that I mentioned. So that company table refers to information about my company. What I'm looking for is information from the customer's account, which in this case, it's the sales ledger table. So if I expand that, and you'll see the variables, there will be an alphanumeric order. So if you know what it's called, great. If you don't, we'll come on to that a little bit later on, showing you how you can find it. So what we're after is credit limit. Now, unfortunately, it is actually called a credit limit. Now, I can either drag the mouse down, I can scroll down, and there it is there on the list. So I'm just going to highlight that one. If you know what it's called as well, I could have pressed like C on the keyboard and it would jump down, and if I kept pressing C, if I just show you there, it starts going through any variable beginning with C. So sales ledger, if I just press C, it starts jumping down. Just press C a few times to find the one I'm after. It's there. Obviously, if you know what it's called as well, some of the tables can be absolutely huge, particularly the product ones. So if you know what it's called, sometimes you can just use the find option at the top. But it's credit limit I'm after. So if I just OK that, it'll pop it in this box for me. Now I see it picks up some formatting from what I had selected, which was the heading last time round. But let's just say I was happy with that and I clicked off it. Come back to formatting and things in a moment. And then if I just preview at the bottom, just OK the criteria, and you can see it now pulls through that credit limit. Obviously, I might want to put a heading in there, would make sense. And I'll probably want to change that format just so it looks like the main body of the rest of the report as well. For now, we're just going to go back to that designer view. I'll knock it off for the time being. Let's get rid of that as well at the bottom. We'll show you the next method. Now, if you don't actually have the toolbar at the top where it says Add Data Field, might be that you just got it switched off. So if you just pointed a blank part of your toolbar at the top, right click, and it's Toolbox Basic that we're after. So if it's not there, just right click, find it, Toolbox Basic, it'll put it back on for you. You can also go via the Toolbox menu and it would have Add Data Field on there as well. It does the same thing. You would just select it and click where you want to insert that. Let's go back to the pointer. The other method is to use the variables panel. So this option down the left, again, you should have that available. If you don't, so if you're looking and think, well, Michael's got variables there, I haven't got that, just back to view, choose the variables option, and it should give you this option down the side. I'll just pin that back so you can see it. So variables, if I click it, it expands it, equivalent of that Add Data Field window I got when I clicked Add Data Field, then I clicked on the report. So it gives me the same option. Just look for sales ledger, find what I'm after, get a much bigger list displayed now. So I'll find the credit limit, and then I just double click and you can see it pops it on the report for me. It should pin itself back to the side there when you're done. Now it looks to be in the right format as well this time. If I want it to make sure, I would just click on maybe one of the other ones, so like telephone number. I can see that says criteria details at the top. If I go back to credit limit and just reselect criteria details from the drop down, it'll make sure it's in the right format for me. Obviously I can play around with things like alignment and things like that as well. If I want to put a heading in there, now, if you attended the customizing your invoice layout, you'd be familiar with this one as well. So I could just add text and I could sort of click on that one, click into this part, and I could start typing. However, easiest way to insert a bit of text and make sure it's got the same sort of formatting is if I just right click on telephone, I'll copy it. And then if I right click on a blank part and I'll just paste it in. So it's in the right format there. If I was happy with that, fine, just click off it. But obviously I want to change the text. So just double click it and then start removing what's there. And I would just type in credit limit. I've even typed that incorrect today, so I'm winning today. So if you were happy with that one, the right format, it's in the right position, right alignment, then just click off it and that's it done. If I want to see what that now looks like, just click on the preview option at the bottom. I'll accept the criteria values option, and then we've got that. Obviously, I can mess around with alignment as well, so I could do right align it, so we got the sort of the decimal point and the pence at the right hand edge. So if I just go back, click on it, and we'll just right align it. Just do that one only. I'll make it a bit narrower as well. And again, if I was happy with that, click off it, click the preview option at the bottom, okay that, and now looks a lot better there. So let's zoom in so you can see that a little bit clearer as well. Again, I can nudge it into position, set the alignment, etc. So formatting, we sort of covered in session number 2. If you need a bit of a recap on that one, again, the recording's available. Now, different ledgers reports are linked to different tables. So if we just quickly have a look at go back to the designer view again, and we just expand the variables panel, you can see the type of information or the tables that we have access to. So we do have things like audit header, audit split, audit usage, company. But for this one, with it being a customer report, we've got access to the sales ledger. We don't have access to any supplier information on this one. Now, if I just close this report, I'm not going to save any changes. And if we close out, and this time pop into suppliers, reports, we'll go for supplier details, supplier list, so the equivalent report, but this time in suppliers. We'll edit that. Obviously, the design of it looks very similar as well. But if we now have a look at the variables, again, we get a lot of common tables. So audit header, split, usage, again, the company table. But this time we've got the access to what you term the purchase ledger. So that's where it's pulling the supplier record information from. And again, within that, you've got loads of different variables available. So you do have more on customers, but even for a supplier, which start scrolling down, it'll give you a bit of an idea of all of the different bits of information that are contained within the supplier record that potentially you could include on your report. That's before we get involved with transactional information. So again, if I just scroll back up there, you'll see there is one in here for credit limit. So same variable, and you'll often find the variables in different tables have the same name, but obviously it's pulling information from, it'll have pulling different information from, in this case, different records. So generally speaking, you don't have to learn every individual variable. They generally have common names. Now, to help you find the correct variable in the first place, so there'll be the odd one that you think, oh, I haven't got a clue what that is. There's a great article within our help center. Now, if I just open my browser, and I'll start from scratch here with just a blank window, I'm going to go to our help center, so sage.co.uk/help. Now I'm going to pop a link in the chat box in just a moment. I'll just get ahead of myself and switch the chat box on at my end. So we're going to choose Sage 50 accounts. And if I just search for which variable, so just pop that in the search, click the search button, and it will give me a list. So this is the one I'm interested in. Tables and variables used by Report Designer. Now, when I click that, it brings up this article. Now, sometimes it can just take a little while to load maybe, and it's this section here that I'm interested in. Now, your sort of disclaimer at this point is that this view is based on an older version. Can't remember which version that's from. Some of you may remember it looking like that. It's not far off though. Now, this tables and variables, let's say I wanted to find something. So I go into customers. So I would just navigate to the relevant area. So if I'm thinking, right, well, what is it for, like if I was looking for credit limit, for instance, I don't know what that's called. I just go into customers and then I can hover over the credit limit and you'll get this little box appear. So in this case, it says sales ledger.credit limit. So sales ledger being the table, credit limit being the variable. Telephone, sales ledger.telephone. So it's telling me, so if I want to insert that onto a specific report, if it's not already there, and I don't know what it's called, I just hover over it. Now, similarly, if I go into a record, I was looking for information, let's say it was the trade contact. If I just hover over it, it'll tell me sales ledger trade contact. Now, there are some options for navigation at this point. To reset it, I always think the easiest way, just to get back to the main page there, is just press F5 on your keyboard, it reloads it, and you can start again. So if it's, let's say it was transactional information I was after. So in transactions, and let's say I am after the, let's say the due date, the due on date. So again, I would just find the relevant column, hover over it, and it tells me in this case it's audit header dot due date. So audit header being the table, due date being the variable. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste, copy this link, and I'm going to pop it into the chat panel for you. So it should mean it's then clickable for you in that chat panel. If you prefer, you can navigate to it, so in the way that I mentioned. Remember F5, it resets it for you. So if I just click on that again, F5, it just takes me back to the start again. I can start navigating through that again. Now what I'm going to do is, I'd like you to have a go of that. And if I pop back to the slides just for a moment, I've got a quick challenge for you. So I've got 4 variables for you to try and find. So using that resource, it's a really popular resource, that one, which is why I'd like you to have a go of it. So see if you can use that resource. So if you want to get to it, just click into the chat box. The link should be there. Click the link, it should open that on a new tab for you. And what I'd like you to find is the variable for the customer account balance, the variable for the supplier VAT registration number, an invoice due date, and also a transaction extra reference. So have a go of that, see if you can find it. I'll work through them with you in just a moment, but I'll give you a chance to have a little play with that article. Have a go. Link is in the chat. So just give it a click, it should open the relevant article for you. If not, just head along, open your browser or open a new tab in your browser. Head along to sage.co.uk/help. Choose Sage 50 accounts. It'll say desktop in brackets. And then in the search box, if you just type which variable, and I think it was the fourth article that it found. Give that a click and it should load that article with the screenshots on. And again, it's just a case of navigating to the relevant areas. So you'll find out how easy it is to, if you're not sure about something, it's quite common when people get into more complex reports, right? Which table do I find this information on, and what's the name of the variable? So I'll just give you a minute or two just to have a go for that, and then I'm going to run through it with you. So if you're struggling or can't find the link, do let me know. Just pop a message in the questions panel rather than the chat box. As I say, I'm going to run it through with you in just a moment. Just the idea is just to give you a little go of that. If you want to, obviously flag that as one of your favorites so you can easily get back to it. But as you've seen, if you have navigated to it, and when I navigated to it, it's easy enough to find that. Again, might just take a few moments, depending on the speed of your internet connection, to find that information if you need it. Right, okay. So hopefully you have had a go of that. If not, again, the link will be included on the follow-up email, so you can always have a go. So let me just quickly show you. I'll just get it on my screen. So here we are back on the article. So the first one we're after is the customer account balance. So we'd find that obviously on the customers list. We've got the balance column, so we can just hover over it. So nice and easy, that one. It's sales ledger dot balance. So sales ledger being the table, balance being the variable. Second one was the supplier VAT registration number. So we just click to suppliers. Now you'll find the VAT registration number within the record itself. So I just click that new edit to bring up a record. And then what I'm after is the VAT registration number. So again, we can just hover over it. So it's this time it's purchase ledger dot VAT reg number. Invoice due date. I'll just refresh that. So if I go into invoices and credits, and I'll just bring up the essentially click that first icon, and the due date, the one I'm after, is the due on. So we just again hover over it. So in this case, it's invoice.payment due date. So invoice being the table, payment due date being the variable. And then the final one was the transaction extra reference. So again, I'll just refresh that table, pop into transactions, and we can just about see. It's going to let me scroll. Just use the cursor keys to scroll across a little bit there. So we're after the extra reference. So here it is there, the XREF column. So it's saying the extra reference is in the audit split table, and it's called extra ref. So if you ever need to find something like that, use that resource. It's a nice one to just sort of quickly click through it just to find what it is you're after. Right, let's get back to some more demonstration then. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly edit. Actually, I've got Report Designer open, so I had a quick question about from Caroline. Why do some of the customers have an asterisk on the left of the name? So in the design event, you've got this on this supplier account as well. It'll put a little, it's got a little expression there. It'll pull through whether it's inactive or not. So that's what that should mean. It's got a little asterisk next to it. It should mean that it's flagged as being inactive, the record. If you've never used inactive records before or inactive accounts and flagged them, it's a great way of hiding sort of redundant customers or suppliers or products or bank accounts or nominal codes. Look out for that webinar recording. It's a great little feature, that one. Anyway, we'll close out of this for the time being. Pop into invoices. I'll highlight an invoice on the list, pop into print, and we'll just quickly select a layout. It doesn't really matter which one it is. We'll highlight a layout, click edit at the top. Again, it will open the design of that invoice within the report designer. And again, it's pretty much the same. So if you're looking for something, you would just hover over it. So if I hover over that one, it tells me, right, for the invoice number, it's the invoice table, and its invoice number is the variable. So the way tables and variables works, it's pretty much the same. Diana, you mentioned there, is the invoice due date different under the audit header table? No, it should be one and the same thing. Just need to be a little bit careful where you're looking. Sometimes you might find information is recorded at what you would term header level rather than split level, and vice versa. And we're going to come on to transactions in just a few minutes. So you can see, as I say, from editing a layout, and that will go for statements, remittances, sales orders, purchase orders, credit note layouts, if they're any different to your standard invoice one. It works in pretty much the same way as far as tables and variables are concerned. One that's worth mentioning is the address information. So here we've got, it says on here, we point at the where you traditionally would have the supplier's address, we've got C address underscore 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now these are what you would refer to as a compact address. Now what that means is, let's say if you had an address where maybe there was nothing in line 3 or line 4 of the address, what it would do, it would compact it up. So it works, still in the right position, but it would actually compact the address so you're not left with a gap in the middle of it. If you had the standard address, so address 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it would actually then leave that gap. But these work in a slightly different way, these ones. They use the C underscore address underscore 5, etc. Again, I could hover over it to find out what it is. So it's what we term, as I say, the compact address. Right, so as I say, they work pretty much the same way. I just wanted to quickly show you that one, just to get that point back. Right, now I want to quickly mention sort of transactional information as well. Now, there are essentially two tables you've got for transactions. I suppose you've got your record tables, which you're looking at customers, suppliers, etc. But you've also got your transaction tables. Now, transaction tables, and I want to try and go through this in a little bit of detail. Let me just make sure I've got the right accounts. I'll try and demonstrate this to you. So I'm going to quickly create a customer, and I'll just call it Z1, and I'm going to save that. I'll put Z1 in the company name as well. Just quickly save it. And what I'll do is I'm going to enter a batch invoice. So it pulls through the account automatically for me. Now the first one, I'll give it the reference 123, and I'll just say services, and we'll say it's £100. Now I'm going to do Z1 again. So Z1, bring through that customer again. I'll use the same date. This time I'm going to do 124. I'll call this one services. Just ignore the capital E at the beginning there, just my typing. And I'll do a third line as well. So again, Z1. Now, if anyone is familiar with grouping, grouping works on it being the same account reference, same date, same reference, and they need to be consecutive on that list. And when I do that, I'll just call it products this time. Try and at least correct the typo. And again, we'll just do £100, and I'm going to save that. So we've got two transactions which should be essentially grouped together. We'll just save that. Brilliant. Now, if this obviously works for things like bank payments, obviously batch invoices, credits, they work in pretty much the same way. So for a batch invoice, it's entered on the same screen, there must be consecutive, and then it's account, date, and reference. When you save it, it should group those transactions together. If you enter it via invoices and credits, obviously that information is pretty much the same anyway. So anything on the same invoice, it would be grouped together. So in some areas, you're going to see the breakdown. Others, you'll see it grouped together. So you see that what we term the header information. Now, if I just close out of this for a moment, and we'll go and view the activity for this account. Here it is. We'll just maximize that as well so you can see the information. So this is a brand new account. So you can see in the top here, we've just got two transactions listed. So 123, it's for in total £120. Obviously it includes the VAT there. On the second line, which was for reference 124, where it grouped the two together. So you can see it's showing me £240. Now the top shows the information grouped. So it's what we would term the header information. The bottom box shows me what's termed the split information. So it would actually show me the breakdown if there was one for 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. I see the 2 item lines. Obviously, some of your invoices or bank payments or receipts, they might have loads of individual parts. So again, it would just list it. If you don't see the split like this, it's just the hide detail, show detail option at the top by default. It should be switched on, so you should see the sort of the top box, bottom box. Now, if I go into a customer activity report, so we'll just do it for this one customer. So we'll go into customers, reports, customer activity, and we'll start with the summary. So a summary report, I'll just preview that one. I'll just accept all of the defaults that comes up there. And when it previews, you'll see we've got, in this case, hopefully you can see that, equivalent of what was in the top box, including my little typo there with a capital E on services. So it's showing me essentially the header information. It's a summary. So it's sort of top level information for each transaction. Now, if we edit this report while we're in here, so we'll just click edit at the top. We'll get into the design of the report. And the reason I wanted to show you that was just when it displays things like the gross amount, the value of a transaction, it's this option here. If I just hover over that, you'll see that little box that appears. It says variable audit header dot gross amount. So it's the variable itself, it's pulling information through about the transaction from the audit header. And these are all the same. So if I just hover over the individual ones, you'll see it's audit header invoice reference, audit header date, audit header type, audit header tran number. So it's that's where it's picking up the transaction details from, the audit header table for this specific report. Right, let's close out of that one. Now we'll choose, this time we'll choose a different report. We'll go for the detailed reports. Then just preview that one. Just accept all of that criteria. And this time you'll see it shows me the breakdown. So it's showing me the detail. So it's showing me the individual item lines on this report. So it depends, sometimes it just depends what level of detail you're after. That will go for things like age debtors reports as well. How much detail do you want to see? But this time, if we edit this report, so again, we'll just choose edit for at the top from the preview screen. Again, zoom in. The format's pretty much the same of what we just looked at. But if we start hovering over things like the value, you'll see this time it says variable audit split gross amount. And if we just hover over some of the other information as well, the other variables, you see again the little boxes that pops up. It says audit split details, audit split nominal code, audit split invoice reference, and that's for the others as well. So the idea is not to mix and match. If you start editing transactional information, you don't want to be mixing and matching. So I'll give you an example of why that's important. If we just go back to close out of that, we're going to go back to the summary. This is the one where it showed you sort of the 2 transactions, not the breakdown. So if I go back to the summary, I will edit that one. So zoom in a bit so you can see as well. Now what I'm going to do, just for make it nice and simple, I'm just going to make a space here in the middle of the report. And this report is the one that uses the audit header variables. So essentially the grouped information. Now, if I want to put things like something like the extra reference into this one, the extra reference is recorded at what you would term split level. Potentially it's unique to each line of the actual each line of the invoice in this instance. So if I add that data field in, so add data fields, I'll just click approximately where I want to insert that. And if I use the audit split table, and I scroll down, I'm looking for extra reference. There it is. Make sure I highlight the right one, that would help. So you can see it. Obviously, it's picked up the other formatting again. I'll just make it a little bit narrower so it sticks out. I'll leave it as that as well, just so it sticks out like a sore thumb when we preview it in a second. But let's say I've mixed it now. So I've got a mix on this line here of audit header variables. And I've also got this one, which has come from the audit split table. Now, if I preview this one, what we now got, if I find the Z1 account, I forgot I was going to do that. Just go right at the bottom to find that Z1 account. There it is. So what we've got now, because we've mixed the variables between the tables, is we've got 3 transactions. So we've got for essentially the first item had 1, 2, 3, and we had 2 at 1, 2, 4. But the gross amount variable is pulling that from the header table where you've got the grouped information. So it's pulling through £240 for this transaction. It's also essentially repeating it again. So rather than just have 360 as the total outstanding balance, we've now got 600 because it's repeated the information. So the point of really trying to make is if you are amending transactional based reports, do not mix your tables. Otherwise, you might get some dubious results. So do be careful with that. It's very common for our report design team to come across that where people are saying, "Oh, the value's a lot higher than I was expecting," and it's just when you've created the report or you've added in variables, you've mixed the variables from the 2 tables. So again, watch out for that one. Just really wanted to cover that one because it's such a common problem. Right, now that brings us to the end of the demos for tables and variables. If you do want to find out more, there's loads of information available from our Help Center. If you have downloaded the slides, I've included some links on them. They'll only work those links if you download the full color version, but remember that nice and easy to find those articles. If you do have any questions, pop them in there. To get them submitted. Remember, you just click the little speech bubble icon. It'll expand the panel. You get access to that box in the bottom corner. And you can start typing any comments or questions you have. If we don't get a chance to answer them, a little bit pushed for time already. So if we don't get a chance to answer them, we'll just try and reply via emails. So hopefully that will be either today or early tomorrow morning. We'll get an answer to any questions that you might have. Obviously, loads of webinars coming up. We mentioned the report design series at the beginning. We've got another 4 topics where we're going to be looking at expressions. So I suppose what you would term calculations. We're going to be looking at criteria, filters, groups and sections. If you do want to attend those, make sure you get signed up for those. If you haven't already, the link is included on your follow-up email to get yourself registered. As well as obviously links to our recordings as well. Right, I'm going to quickly thank you for attending because we are pushed a little bit for time. So many thanks for coming along. Hope you've enjoyed it. It's given you a little bit more insight into the workings and I suppose setting the foundations to a certain extent for what we're about to cover in the next 4 sessions. If you do get a chance, do complete the survey. It should pop up as you leave the session. Let us know your thoughts. If you want to share any ideas about how we could improve webinars or topics you'd like to see covered, let us know. Pop it on there. It should take you about a minute max to do that. We love reading those comments just to see if we've hit the mark and see if there's any new ideas coming through. And your follow-up email will be with you in round about an hour's time. So it will include a link to today's recording, the registration page link. So get yourself registered for those other sessions. We have published the November timetable today. Got one last amendment to do. It should be on by the end of today. So get yourself registered for some of those November sessions as well. And hopefully we'll see you on them very, very soon. Right, any questions? Shiona, you mentioned there you've mixed some of the criteria with headings. That shouldn't make any difference for the headings themselves. It's the main body. So it's only when we're talking about transactional information as well. So sometimes you'll have a mix of you might have sales ledger variables in there and others. It just depends what you're after. But again, as we get more into the report designer, so things like groups and sections, it's a really interesting one to attend if you haven't already. Get yourself signed up. So it'll help you learn more about that. So it was really, because it's such a common question, I wanted to cover the audit header audit split. If you still don't understand the grouping of transactions, there is a recorded webinar on that one as well. But I don't think it should cause you a problem if you just done about the headings and the criteria. Debbie, you mentioned can you export your reports? So can't really export the design of the report, but certainly once you've run your reports, yeah, you can export them if you want to send them to Excel. You can send the report to Excel, send the data that is included on the report to Excel, slightly different formats. You might just export and save it as a PDF. Just really depends what you're after. Sue, you mentioned there, is it possible to have a report showing the audit header and then the related audit split underneath each header? It would be. There will be reports that already show that. Just depends what you're after. So yes, it is possible. I'm not going to demonstrate that today, but again, groups and sections, that will give you a good idea about that one as well. So potentially you could show the group as the header transaction and all the detail sort of in the sort of section beneath that. Shiona, you think you've answered one of your questions as well? Yeah, okay, no worries. Right, I'll have a look through the others. Again, if you don't get an answer, apologies for that one, but I'll try and pop an email to you either this afternoon or early tomorrow morning. We'll end the webinar just at that point though. So many thanks for coming along. Do take that opportunity to supply a little bit of feedback and complete that survey, and do get yourself registered for the upcoming webinars as well. Remember that timetable now runs up to the end of November. So do have a look and get yourself registered. Many thanks, and hopefully I'll see you again very soon.